My name is John Tinger. I'm originally from New York City. I was born and raised in, I was born in New York City, but I was raised in Queens, New York. And when I was 18, I joined the Air Force. I joined the Air Force because the Korean War was going on. And to be perfectly honest, I didn't want to get shot. And I figured the Air Force would be the safest place. And it was. I was very fortunate because my first duty station was not Korea, but Florida. So I didn't have to go to Korea. I went to Florida. I went to Eglin Air Force Base, which is Fort Walton Beach, Florida, which was just a beautiful place to be. And I was very fortunate, very pleased to be there. And it was a great duty station. And it gave me an introduction to the South. In the military, as a 19 and 20-year-old kid, I was learning a great deal about the world and the difference in the world and the difference in people and how they lived and how they treated others. And while I was I was home on leave, my cousin introduced me to a girl she was going to college with on a blind date, and I fell madly in love with her, and we got married. My wife and I decided to adopt children. They advised us, as long as we're in the military, we would have difficulty. So I got out, went to X-ray school, and then I met a guy in church. So I was out of the military completely. Met a fellow in church, and he said, I'll get you in the National Guard for a year, and because you don't want to give up those 8 years you had in the Air Force. And so I went into the National Guard, and I heard that they were looking for an X-ray technician with a New York State license. So I had that, and the Army Reserve was looking for such a person, and I qualified. So I went into the Army Reserve with my license, and there I was. So I stayed in there for 15 years, the Army Reserve, and I was proud to wear both uniforms. Very proud to wear both uniforms.
What comes to your mind when someone says to you, thank you for your service?
I thank them for their patriotism.
My name is Orrin Lemuel Butler, and I was in the Army. I was just an E5. I was an arms operator. I overlooked the arms. I had to make sure they had them all cleaned. I handed their weapons out to them and made sure that they cleaned them and brought them back.
How fast can you take apart a weapon and put it back together again?
32 seconds, blindfolded. I think everybody should be able to do what they want to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, not what they have to do. I did my job, you know, but as far as anything extra, no.
Yes.
My name's Benny Lyon. I was born in Mississippi. I traveled into Oregon for my reserve time. I went into service because of my family was better than low class because my mother had no education over than fifth to ninth grade. My dad couldn't read or write. So when I got out of high school, the only place left was me to join the service or get anything out of life. So I tried to join, and I found out that I had won a 4-year scholarship to go to college. So I had to back out of going into service and serve my time in college. I enjoyed that. And when I knew that after all of the deferments that I had to stay in school, I would have to go into service as soon as I got out. And I got my notice as soon as I got out, I was going to be drafted. So I joined and went to Fort Jackson, South Carolina for basic. And from there, on my basic leave after we finished basic training, I flew back to California and was going to Oregon to spend 10 days with my folks before I went to Vietnam, Korea. And I got a notice, get on a plane, go back to Fort Jackson. So went back to Fort Jackson. I got notice there to go to Fort Bragg. And I went to Fort Bragg. Everybody was packed up, ready to go, and I didn't know where we were going. But we wound up in Germany with the 868 field artillery, which is 280 millimeter cannon atomic warheads. And I spent my time in Germany for 3 years, and I come back home for a few days, and I went back to Germany. I re-upped and went back to Germany. And what we saw in Germany, we were rebuilding and occupying a country that had been torn to bits. So we tried to, under those circumstances, we were the boss for about till, I don't know, 4 or 5 years that I was there. And they got their independence back again, so all of Germany became on its own. So we were an occupational force. We had four outfits, I think, with the 280 millimeter cannon that we stayed in the American zone, which was the southwest part of Germany, and the northwest was British. The east was Russia. And after all of those years of that, I used a lot of my education, and I think the one reason that I went back to Germany by their request was because of having differential calculus. We didn't have computers back then. So fire missions, I was put over a fire mission, had about 6 guys under me. And we figured the mission for our cannon, which was anywhere from 10 to 40 miles. And I did radar part of the time so that I would know what the shell was doing and what the shell was not doing. While I was there, me and a buddy from Kentucky run into a mayor of the town of Kusel, and he wanted us to teach young children from school age to 19 the language that the GIs spoke. They spoke perfect language, English language, but they couldn't understand the GI. So we spent 3 nights a week teaching children how to correspond with GIs and some of the meanings of the terminology. So that was about the biggest excitement other than firing the weapon because it's pretty loud and pretty accurate. After that, I came back to Mississippi and spent a short period of time with my relatives. My mother and father had moved to Oregon, and I went straight out to Oregon and went to work at a sawmill, and I worked on the fire crew for forest fires. And I got married at I think 30 years old. We had 4 children. One was in the military, and he was in the National Guard, and he had cancer and passed away at 39 years old. But after that, I tried to raise my kids, and I put them all through college, and they all have good jobs. So I had little to worry about after that.
What do you think when you hear that? Thank you for your service.
I have a different acceptance of that because of the fact that I didn't serve in a war zone. So the only thing I can really get from that is the fact that if it wasn't for our service people, this country probably wouldn't exist today. What would I advise them to do?
Yes.
At least go in for an induction of 3 years and take a trade of some sort and go with it so that they could come out of there with a better attitude about their country and their life.
So in May of 1965, I got drafted and sent to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri for basic training. I was fortunate to go in, although I was trained in electronics, I was working in it. They sent me to finance. Now, back then, if you're drafted, whatever the thing comes up where they need, that's where you go. And, but, you know, it was a good choice. The only thing they would have done for me if I would have went to Vietnam would probably went to Saigon and worked in military pay. Yeah, I was pretty lucky. I almost went to Vietnam, but there was a guy in our office there working key punch, which guys probably don't know what that is, but these guys do. Anyway, he got into it with a civilian manager in that department and put his fist through the drywall. So they said, do you want an Article 15 or do you want to go to Vietnam? And he just chose Vietnam and my name dropped. And he went. So that's how I got out, go to Vietnam. Well, I just think that during my time, there were a lot of draft dodgers and didn't want to go to Vietnam. So they went to Canada and tried to avoid service. I just, felt an obligation to go. My brother was in the Army, and my uncle was in World War II in Germany, and I just felt it was my duty to serve. Just to say that you take whatever good training you can and serve your time. If it works out that that's basically what you want to do and you want to stay in, that's fine. If you want to go on and get a civilian job, you can use that training. Yeah, I had no problem with my service. It was good to serve.